I'll go Hornets. Alrighty, welcome back, everyone, to the Second Take podcast. My name is Casey.
My name is Alex. What's up, everybody?
Glad to be back again, back on a normal schedule. It's a bit rainy out there, so bring your umbrellas, and we're excited to get into another episode. And say at the start every time, but we are with the Sports Business Association here at the George Washington University. You can find anything you need at the Linktree or on our Instagram, which is GWUSBA. That's GWUSBA. And that being said, one more. We do have the one of the big events the SBA hosts. It's called the Sports Industry Networking Conference. It's taking place next weekend on Friday and Saturday at George Washington University. And it's a great opportunity to network with people. There will be over 100 industry professionals there, over agencies, sports teams, anything you can name. And it's a great opportunity to meet people if you're looking for work for the summer, an internship for full time. It's an amazing, amazing opportunity. I can't recommend it enough. And I hope if anyone out there is interested, you sign up.
Yeah, and feel free to walk up to Casey or myself at the conference, introduce yourself if you're a fan of the pod. But with that being said, let's get right into it, right? And yep. Casey and I talked about this before the pod. We're in a bit of a rut in sports right now.
It's a bit of a dry season.
NFL, we're kind of, not close enough to the important stuff of the offseason to talk about it in depth. MLB, we're right on the cusp of starting, but even then, spring training lasts, the longest month of the year from when you really think baseball starts to when it actually starts.
Never ends.
So today's going to be a lot more NBA centric. So we have a couple really fun segments to talk about with you guys, and hopefully those kind of blossom into some separate conversations. So let's go ahead and talk about a little segment we call Face of the Franchise. So the other day on social media, I was scrolling and I found, one of these accounts that essentially just does, reviewing teams and saying, is this player the face of their franchise? Meaning, is this player the guy for this franchise, this organization going forward for, we'll say, the next 3 to 5 years, right? Is this going to be the team, the player that the team builds around, right? So let's start off with a player we both know and love, but has been at the head of a lot of interesting controversy, considering he just crashed his car and may be playing soon after, possibly tonight. Let's start with, is LaMelo Ball the face of the Hornets franchise?
No. I do not think so, and I'm a huge, huge fan of LaMelo. I love the way he plays. I think he's really funny. I think a lot of people think he's funny, but the reason I say that is I think he's gone within the next 1 to 2 years. He's either on a big contract or he's due for one, and that's going to be a big cap hit. He's going to demand over $50 a year.
Yeah.
And, given the trajectory of the franchise, yes, they've been hot recently. They've been playing great. And I have something I'll touch more on that later with. However, I think they're going to hand the keys over to Khan in the next couple of years while he's still on that rookie contract. That gives them more flexibility to build. And Brandon Miller, I believe he's in his third year.
I think so, yes.
Yeah. I don't know what LaMelo's role in that team would be. I think if they want Khan to be, that first scoring option, they need to give him the keys. He'll stay at the shooting guard spot, of course. And LaMelo is a fantastic playmaker, and he's done well this year in, not taking as many shots. I mean, last year he was averaging over, 28, 27, and he's taking a little step back this year in terms of how many shots he's putting up to try to spread the love a little bit more, which I do love. However, I don't know how long I see him staying on the team for the pure fact that he's a big market player. And he's playing in Charlotte. He seems like he's having fun. He likes the guys on the team.
Yeah.
Team morale is high. They have good chemistry. However, I think the defensive liability aspect and the turnovers, the carelessness, I think that catches up to them eventually. And, while I think they can make a splash this season, I don't know if LaMelo is the guy that they're going to roll with going down the line, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah, unfortunately, as much as I love LaMelo Ball as you, I have to agree. I think it's just there are some things about LaMelo Ball, the intangibles, if you will, that are just, they're not good enough for a face of the franchise player. I mean, what an incredible, one-of-a-kind player to watch. He's so talented as a scorer, but just when you're looking for defense, when you're looking for just, consistent play, not even to mention, he's constantly injured. It's just, I think when you look at what you have with the rest of this Hornets team, especially with Khan and Brandon Miller, which is a great duo. Miles Bridges, if he's allowed to play in the NBA going forward,
not sure.
Assuming he doesn't, get himself in any more trouble, is a great, complementary piece of that. And then we're forgetting they have Kobe White, who they just traded for, who I think is a far better spot, fit into that kind of team chemistry, run the floor, fast break offense. Whereas LaMelo Ball, he really needs the ball in his hands. He takes a lot of really low percentage shots. He's just not that efficient of an NBA player. And I agree with you. I think he's going to demand so much money where it's like, if you can move off LaMelo, I'm not sure when he's a free agent. But I imagine that'll be sometime soon. you'll use that Con Knuppel rookie contract. Hopefully Brandon Miller has another year or two on that, and then you have a lot of other young guys like Musa Diabate is kind of coming into his own, and then the teams that manage to make the playoffs but then don't really do much the next year tend to kind of add, following to the next season. So I could see the Hornets making a playoff appearance this year. Maybe they pull off some crazy upsets or at least look decent, and then maybe go out and pick up another player. Mainly trying to fill out that center spot, which had Mark Williams, who I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
And I wish they never shipped them off. But yeah, I'd have to agree with you here and say LaMelo is not the face of the franchise.
I agree. I think they go forward with Kobe White, honestly. And LaMelo is on contract, but it's only $38 million a year as of right now. That could be higher going forward. And I think another reason is that the East is very, very guard heavy. I mean, Tatum's not playing right now, but you have on the other teams, you have Donovan Mitchell, you have Maxey, you have Brunson, and you have Cade Cunningham. Yeah. And those are 4 guys who demand a lot of attention. LaMelo is tall, but he can't hang with any of those guys. And, of course, you can switch. I mean, you saw how the Pacers did it in their series against the Knicks, how they were able to kind of limit what Brunson could do by, keeping a rotation of Nembhard and Nesmith on him. However, I don't know if the Pacers have that depth at the guard position defensively to be able to keep up with that. And I think investing long-term, if they think they're ready to compete, investing long-term in a better defensive point guard might be a good play for them.
Yeah.
I think moving on, we go to another somewhat, I wouldn't say quite as polarizing to their franchise, but a polarizing player in terms of if they're the face of the franchise, and that's Scotty Barnes.
Scotty Barnes. It's an interesting one. I mean, he's been in the league, a lot longer than it feels like. He still feels like a young guy. Mm-hmm. But at this point, I mean, let's see what has at least like 5 to 6 years under his belt, right?
This might be your 6.
This is his 5th year.
Okay.
So we've been expecting this kind of jump for a while from him. Like if you actually look at his stat page, it's kind of eerie how close his stats are. First 2 seasons, average 15.3 points, and then the last 3 years, it's just 19, 19, 19. And it feels like we've been really, really waiting for him to make this jump. And I will say there's something about the Raptors roster construction that makes that kind of difficult. Like rather than concentrating all of their cap, their payroll and their touches into like a couple star players, they actually have a really built out starting line, which is something I really enjoyed. I mean, you have Quickly, Ingram, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, and Jakob Poeltl. Like, even though you're lacking that like concentrated star power, you have stars at every position, which is actually a kind of roster format that I really find interesting because teams like the Cavaliers do something similar, except now they've added James Harden, so maybe that shakes it up a little bit. But the point I'm trying to make here is that it's been hard for Scotty Barnes to make the jump because usually, he's been an amazing player, but you need to hit that like 25 points per game category to really be considered, a face of a franchise or at least capable of being one. And as of right now, I'm going to go ahead and say no, just off the principle that I don't expect Scotty Barnes to be the player that really shapes every decision that your franchise makes going forward, especially when you've got Emmanuel Quickley, who's so underrated in like the broad scheme of the NBA. They've got Colin Murray-Boyles, who's been very, very good this year, and he's a rookie. And then B.I. has been a revelation, who's a player I've always been high on, just thought he needed the right situation. And then even then, you've still got guys like R.J. Barrett and Grady Dick. It's less so an indictment on Scotty Barnes as a player, and more so it's just that the path to becoming the face of a franchise isn't, as apparent to me as it is for some other guys.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm actually going to disagree with you here. I think he can be the face of the franchise in a similar way that Tyrese Halliburton is. Now, hear me out here. So, Halliburton he's their best player. I think Scotty Barnes is the best player on his team. Scotty Barnes is, in my opinion, a top 5 defender in the league. He can guard any position, and he is so, so impactful. I've seen so many, they're advanced stats, so I don't really know exactly what they mean, but he's ranking top of so many defensive metrics. His on-court versus off is very impressive. And I think speaking to his scoring level being the same the past 3 years, in his 3rd year, they add Brandon Ingram, they add RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley. And then this year, you get Brandon Ingram in the mix. That's taking a lot of shots away from Scotty.
Right.
And it has made him more efficient. And I think that he's, fits with that team super well. And he's a team player. He gets assists even from the power forward position. He is, maybe not shaping every play they make out there just because they have so many other guys that can go get their own bucket. However, I can't see them moving on from him. I think they'd be stupid to.
Yeah.
And I think you see this team really crumble without his presence being there, considering they don't really have an established big man. Because Jakob Poeltl, he hasn't been anything great this year. They have Sandro Kilashvili. I have him in
Nice.
fantasy, so I do know his game. It's just a little hard to pronounce, but he's been playing well. They have Colin Murray Boyles, who has shown promise in his young career. But I think at the end of the day, Scotty is the anchor holding that team together. And going back to LaMelo, you can't exactly say the same thing about him.
Right.
If that team is missing LaMelo, you'll see some cracks on offense. But overall, I don't think that the performance of the team dips as much as if Scotty Barnes was to be out. And that's why I say that. However, he's not a face of the franchise in the same way, like talent-wise, that some other guys are.
Yeah.
But, it goes past scoring, and he's across the board just a fantastic player. I'm big on Scotty Barnes.
Right. Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. I think, kind of lending to your point, I don't think you could get a further departure from a player like LaMelo Ball than a guy like Scotty Barnes, who is just all about the intangibles, the defense, just great at every level of the game. And if he can really just excel in one of those categories, and the fact that he's been efficient this year with the other talent on his team is so promising, I don't think they can move on from him at all. And I think you got to keep running this core back, but eventually, it's just how the NBA is. You do have to kind of cluster some of that star talent and get guys that are just top 10, top 15 in the league. So hopefully one of the guys on the Raptors can grow into that, right?
Yeah.
But moving on, we've got a couple other interesting players on our list here. One I'd love to talk about is one who's been, a complete breakout, not just this year, but as of recent. Especially because his teammate Trae Young got traded to the Wizards for some reason, demanded to be traded to the Wizards, which is something we could talk about for an entire episode.
Yeah, I don't.
But the player I'm talking about is Jalen Johnson, who is starting to become a household name, I'd say, for maybe NBA fans who aren't as hardcore as most. He is, in my mind, an incredible player. And I would love to hear if you think he is good enough at this point to be considered the face of the Atlanta Hawks franchise.
I had time to prep. I had plenty of time to think about this. I'm not sure. It's tough because I don't think he's blossomed into exactly what he can be yet.
Right.
It's tough. The Hawks are in a weird spot where it seems like for the past few years, they've had Trae Young and now they have Jalen Johnson as, kind of their star.
Right.
And then they have a bunch of other guys around them who are very good players. Like, you have CJ McCollum, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who are both, great scorers. Outside of that, not bringing an incredible amount to the table. Dyson Daniels fits his role great. He's a good playmaker, an outstanding defender. Zachary Reese-Share, you suck. I mean,
He might go back to college.
Yeah, he's awful. Onyeka Okongwu, great in his role, putting up way more points than I thought he was going to. I mean, he's putting up over, I think, 16 a game.
He's
I
balling.
was not expecting.
He's balling this.
So with Jalen Johnson, I mean, yes, he is incredible in every facet of his game. I just don't know if he is the guy they're going to stick with. And everything is telling me that he will be. I mean, he's averaging 23, nearly 11 rebounds, and 8 assists. He's fourth in the league in assists as, a 6'8" power forward, which is incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
He shoots on good splits. And I guess the more I'm talking about it, I think he could be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what gives me hesitance is because with the Hornets, I feel like they have a direction. With the Raptors, I feel like they have a direction. With the Hawks, I'm not sure. I mean, they're sitting at 10th right now with what I would say is a pretty talented roster.
Right.
Eventually, Jalen Johnson's got to get paid, and he's going to get a big payday if they have not already extended him. Oh, never mind, they did. They got him actually for pretty cheap.
Yeah.
This is tough. I don't know. It's just this Hawks team is clearly not ready to contend.
Right.
But what else can they really, put around this roster to make it a competing team?
Yeah. I completely agree with you. And as you were saying that, I was kind of thinking to myself, like, is he? And I think this is kind of a leap of faith, but I'm gonna go ahead and just say yes. I've really loved what I've seen from him so far. Not only like what we know he is, just like this hyper athletic defensive demon, but he's grown a lot with the mid range. The shot making has really improved this year. And he's just been an efficient player for them. He's been just so good. And like you said, averaging 9 assists per game as a power forward. Like, he's nearing averaging a triple-double. Not really on the rebound end, but at least a double-double with assists is very impressive. For a guy like him, we didn't even really think of him in this light. You just kind of remember Jalen Johnson as the guy who would just get these crazy athletic dunks. So I think if you're the Hawks, if anything, even more so now that your direction to championship contention isn't as clear, I think that's all the more reason to kind of go in on Jalen Johnson. I think it's they've got the pieces of a good roster here. I will say I think the fit between him and soon when Jonathan Kuminga comes back is going to be a little bit questionable. Like, Jonathan Kuminga is going to have to try to settle into a I guess, more of an off-ball role. But surrounding Jalen Johnson with shooters, to me, is really what's important here. Like, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, amazing. CJ McCollum, in my mind, should be starting. Then you've got Buddy Hield and Gabe Vincent off the bench. Like, I think they have a vision for this team, which is using the gravity that Jalen Johnson has as a player who primarily operates inside of the three-point line to, kind of suck in players and then get some wide open shots. I think there's a vision for this team, and even like Onyeka Okongwu is shooting like 37% from three. There's a vision here for the Hawks, and I think that's got to rotate around Jalen Johnson being your number one guy. So I'm going to say yes. I think it's a leap of faith, but I really do like what I've seen from him this year.
Yeah, and I'm not out by any means. I just need more time.
Yeah.
The Hawks
I agree.
confuse me. It's hard to get a read on them. And then one more before we get to our next segment is I guess this one's not as difficult. Paolo Banchero.
Yeah, it's
No.
hard. It's a no. It's a no.
Paolo Banchero is not that good, in my opinion. He's not bad. Like of course he's putting up good numbers, but since 2 years ago, his big breakout where they went to 7 with the Cavs, what have they done?
Yeah,
They've been a middling team since. They're 3 games over 500. They're in the play-in. They don't really do anything that well. They're not very good on offense. They're a pretty good defensive team, but like I said, they actually, I think, have the roster to compete. They have Jalen Suggs, who I think is a great point guard, especially in his role. You have Anthony Black behind him, who has been playing outstanding this year. You have Desmond Bane, who's been playing great. Franz Wagner, he's out right now, but an outstanding player. Wendell Carter Jr. is a solid center who plays a good traditional center role, even though he can pop out and hit some threes. What's holding them back? Paolo Banchero.
Yeah.
You take a look at this roster up and down. This team should be competing in a pretty weak East. I mean, I think that this team could, 2 years ago, maybe I've given the Pistons some trouble. Like any team that, went far last year, I think they could have given them trouble. But this year, it does not look like it. And I think that all goes back to Paolo. I mean, he's averaging 21, 8, and 5. At face value, his numbers don't look that bad, but his shot selection is atrocious.
Terrible.
He kills so much momentum with these stupid shots. I mean, he's 6'10", 250, and for some reason takes a Julius Randle role of just posting everyone up and then taking a dumb fadeaway that he doesn't make. Yeah. Now, it's nice to have a guy who can hit those shots, but you need to know, time and place. You need to focus on getting a bucket more. Like I said, you're 6'10", 250, you're shooting 45% from the field, but you're not Joel Embiid. You're not going out there. You're not putting up 35. You're not getting to the line like he does. Yeah. And on defense, he's a cone. He's not giving any effort out there, and he's flat-footed. So I think you put all that together, if that's the face of your franchise, then you're never going to go anywhere. And I think sooner rather than later, they should sell high on him, even though that might be a little bit tougher after this year, given the discourse that he's kind of had floating around with him. And I don't know. It's concerning the situation they're in because I was really excited for this team.
Yeah.
That addition of Desmond Bane made them so scary, in my opinion. I mean, at the start of the pod, I had them as the 3rd best team in the East,
right
behind the Knicks and the Pistons, and all they've done is disappoint. So I think all that being said, no.
Yeah, I have to go with you. And I'm thankful Paolo Banchero is who he is because it gave rise to one of the funniest nicknames in recent history, PB No J, which is just a beautiful nickname.
Forgot about
that. The issue with Paolo Banchero is it's not necessarily so much that it's like he doesn't fit the team or he shouldn't be in their plans, but when the time comes, he's been averaging 20 for 4 straight seasons. When the time comes for the extension, the cost you're going to have to pay to keep Paolo in is just gonna effectively restrict anything else you could do with this team. And like Casey said, there's so much more, in my opinion, more cost-effective options on the Magic that are more promising to me.
I agree.
With Paolo Banchero, he's just the talent is there. The stroke maybe not, but I mean the size. When you have a guy who can shoot at that size, it's so helpful. But it's just the shot selection, the efficiency. It's just so atrocious. It's so many middies. The 3-point shot, it's never been there. And for a guy to be like a midi specialist and not be able to knock it down from 3, to me is just leaving like an atrocious amount of points on the board. And I think it will be hard. Like if we were to remove Paolo from the Magic, I think they would be substantially worse. Like so much worse without him. But I think as a franchise, you've got to find a way to pivot, because I just don't think he's a winning player, especially when you have a guy like Anthony Black, who I was not high on, but now he's absolutely he looks unbelievable.
He looks really
every
good.
time I've seen
he's great.
Anthony Black play against the Sixers, he's just fried them, just so bad. I took my mom to like a 50-point blowout by the Magic. It was awful.
No.
He had like 40 in the first half or something. But I think the pieces are there, but just kind of echoing off what you said, Casey, I just don't think he offers the things as a player. And, he was number 1 overall. There's certain expectations that come with that. And, 4 straight years of a cool 20 on horrid efficiency is just not doing it for me. And the Magic, they've had, multiple seasons now with, the same kind of mold of their core, now added with Desmond Bane. And I think this year's playoffs will really be indicative that Paolo is not the way to go, going forward for this franchise.
Yeah, I agree. And then I just want to see your take on it. We don't have to get super into it. Last one, Donovan Mitchell. I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
Is that crazy? I'm not going to get super in depth. I mainly look at it as I don't think they win a championship this year. I think they're going to try and get LeBron next season, which
That's awesome.
will probably happen just because LeBron runs the league. They're not going to win a championship that year. And then I think they blow it up. Because then, they're in cap space hell. Evan Mobley, he's probably at about his ceiling. Not to say he's not great, but, he's near his ceiling. Jarrett Allen is at his ceiling. Donovan Mitchell's in his prime.
Right.
They're kind of just, trying whatever, seeing if anything will work. I don't think it will work.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I think they blow it up relatively soon. So right now, is Donovan Mitchell the face of the franchise? Yes. He represents, everything you want in a leader. He's an outstanding player. He's good in the clutch. But I don't know. I think in 2 years' time, I think everything's gone. And because of that, I will say no, but like long term.
Right. I actually, even though I don't initially agree with you saying he's not the face of the franchise, I understand why you do, because I feel like there's kind of an interesting caveat here, which is like, I think wherever Donovan Mitchell goes, he's capable and deserving of being the face of the franchise. But maybe very specifically for the Cavaliers, the fact that they went out and got James Harden, maybe now the emphasis is less on Donovan Mitchell. Even though I think he is an incredible player, just perennially underrated.
Mm-hmm.
I really do think he is probably, the best shooting guard in the league. If not, I guess Anthony Edwards is considered shooting guard, so he's at least top 3.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. This Cavs core has just been going at it. The James Harden trade, I think, is just like a desperate addition to get something done. In their perception that the East is wide open this year, which it's not at all. They're just missing like the Bucks and the Pacers, but you still have the Knicks. You still have the Knicks. You still have the Celtics. So it's a move that I think is, like you said, not going to yield anything. And then maybe losing Donovan Mitchell is the result of that. I think it's more likely that Harden just bails out like he does whenever that his championship roster switch doesn't pan out like he hopes it does.
Mm-hmm.
But I think not by Donovan Mitchell's fault. I don't think he can be the face of the Cavaliers going forward if there is no kind of motion during the playoffs this year, which I don't expect there to be.
Yeah. Now going to something I think might get a little bit more spicy. We're going to talk about who we think is going to win Rookie of the Year. This has been a big year for rookies, given the shit show we had last year with all those guys. There was no one really that impressive from that class, at least not originally. Stephon Castle is outstanding. But this year, you put Dylan Harper in here. I'm just going to get that out of there. VJ Edgecombe, Ron Kneppel, Cooper Flagg. Who is your unbiased take?
Well, unbiased take, it's probably just going to end up being Cooper Flagg, right? And that's based off the narrative. He's the number 1 pick. That's based off the shot.
Who do you think?
Who do I think?
Who do you think should get it?
Who do I think deserves it the most?
Yes,
or who do I...
No. Who do you think deserves it the most?
Well, probably Con Kneppel, because
good,
he's bordering on a 50-40-90 season, which is, I believe, only 9 other players have done that in NBA history.
Not many.
I think like Grayson Allen did it. So it's not like the world's most prestigious award, but it's still an incredible indication. And for the Hornets, we've already kind of touched on this when we talked about LaMelo, but he's just been everything they've ever wanted and more, right? My internal, the biases lean elsewhere for who I believe should win the award, but kind of
15 points.
Well, for Rookie of the Year, I feel like there's a bit of a stipulation where it's about where was the franchise before they drafted this guy and where are they now. And I guess talking about that now, obviously I'm biased about VJ Edgecombe because the Sixers went from the worst season since the Ben Simmons tank off to having promise again and what he's brought. But yeah, statistically he doesn't really hang with Con Kneppel. But then in the same mold, if we're talking about guys who have revived franchises, then Cooper Flagg should be the runaway winner, right? Because Mavs fans went from thinking they just traded their franchise player for potato chips in a bag to getting
another
a potentially generational player. So if you wanted my current pick right now, I think it's going to be Cooper Flagg. But if it were up to me to choose, if it were right now, I'd choose Con Kneppel.
Okay. See, I'm gonna go with the Cooper Flag route. I'm actually just gonna delete this tab of VJ Edgecombe. I'm not even gonna entertain that.
I understand.
I like VJ Edgecombe. I think he's a great ball player. I just don't think he's in the same realm as these two, like stat wise this year. I think he can be.
It's totally fair.
He doesn't have the keys to his franchise yet. These two guys are kind of putting up first option shots.
Right.
And man, it's tough. It's tough. I'm gonna go with Cooper Flag. Colin Kneppel is so good. But I mean, they have the same field goal percentage. I want to point that out. And yes, Cooper Flag has not been as efficient from three, but I mean, the spacing is not there. I mean, you're kicking out to PJ Washington, Najee Marshall.
Right.
They got Chris Middleton now. Oh boy. And I think that a lot of his turnover and I think a lot of his turnover and 3-point shooting struggles also stem from the fact that a lot of this year, Jason Kidd's been running him from the point. Not every game, but, he's letting him get out there and, learn his way up. And as a scorer, he has just impressed me so much.
Yeah.
So much. And I think the narrative at the end of the day with who will win it, I think it should be Flag just because he's such an electric player.
Yep.
I mean, Colin Kneppel is outstanding, but, I mean, Cooper's throwing down dunks. He's, been, putting up a lot more points recently on pretty good shooting.
Right.
I think what's going to set it apart will be the fact that, the Hornets have won 10 of the last 11. The Mavs aren't even in the play-in.
Yeah.
And, some of that is due to the fact that the Mavs are probably, kind of pulling a Spurs move like during Wemby's rookie year where they're kind of trying to play bad so they can keep adding to, a young core they're trying to rebuild. So I think Kneppel will win. But I think it should be Flag just because of the way he's been scoring recently. It's just been outstanding on all three levels. I like his game a little bit more, so I'm a little bit biased. But
interesting. I like that we kind of have opposites of each other, like about who should win versus who we would pick. Yeah, I think it's good that in my mind both of them are like almost equally deserving. So for some fans that means like, oh my god, the other person got robbed. But for me it means like two guys are both deserving of it. I would just add that I feel like Rookie of the Year weights narrative more heavily than some others.
It does.
And I think the narrative is stronger with Cooper Flag. So if I were to pick now, I do think it'll be Flag.
Really? Because we're complete opposites. I think it should be Flag. I think Kneppel will win.
Really?
But that also ties into our next segment, which is post All-Star break hot takes. My first one was Hornets win a playoff series.
That'll definitely matter.
Look, it's a hot take. I do think they'll make the playoffs. Of the teams that they're in the play-in with right now, like, there's nobody special.
Yeah, let's see.
I think that, if they have to keep carrying some of this momentum. They're not going to close out the season on 90% win percentage, but I mean, you got the Heat, you got the Magic, snore. You got the Hawks who could make, they can make a splash, but, overall, not that inspiring of a team. Of those four teams, I think the Hornets excite me the most. I think that they've been playing the best recently. And if that carries through, I mean, that team is clicking right now. I mean, energy is high there. It gives me a little bit of flashbacks to, the Kings of a few years back. They're not playing quite as well so far, but in terms of, team chemistry, fan engagement, it's just that momentum that, like we talked about at the start of the year, there's always that team that surprises you, comes out and, does something big. I had the Trailblazers, but the West is too competitive. They can't do anything, even though they're sitting in a play-in spot. They're only a couple games under 500. But say the Hornets get a lucky matchup. Say round one they land a team like. I mean, I think they'd have to get honestly, into the top 5, if I'm being honest, and they're not too far back. They're 6 games out of 5th. They can make that up. I don't think the Sixers are going to do much. I don't think the Raptors are going to win a playoff series. I could see the Cavs sputtering out, although that would be a tough matchup. But, I think if they get a team that's not the Pistons or the Celtics, I think they'll be fine. I think they can hang with the Knicks.
I was going to say, what about the Knicks?
I think they'd be able to hang with the Knicks matchup-wise, just because of, funnily enough, Moussa Diabate genuinely, can give Mitchell Robinson a run for his money on the boards, and most teams don't have a guy who can do that, and that's a big part of why the Knicks are successful.
Yeah.
And then you have Karl-Anthony Towns. He's going to foul out in 20 minutes on Brandon Miller. And then, of course we have someone for Con, we have someone for LaMelo, but then, say Miles Bridges is, magically allowed to play basketball again. Who's guarding him? I mean, I think that they'd have trouble. Obviously, I think the Knicks would win, but I think that'd be closer than it seems. And it's hard to predict right now, but yes, I can see the Hornets with this current momentum and this current roster construction. Say Kobe White comes in, fills that role flawlessly, and becomes one of the best 6 men in the league.
Right.
I could see them making some noise.
I think it's interesting, and I like the idea behind the Hornets winning a playoff series. Like, I don't think it's so far-fetched. I just think it really does matter on the team that they pull. And for some, they might highly disagree, but I think the Hornets' best chance of upsetting someone in the first round will have to come against a team that's pretty inexperienced in the playoffs. And looking at, this list of teams, the only ones I see are really the Pistons.
This is spicy. This is spicy.
This is hot. I know I'm not as high on the
is
Pistons
spicy.
as others, because things are different in the playoffs as opposed to regular season. I mean, dominating teams in the regular season, it's indicative of a strong roster, but just games are different, and that's why in the playoffs, I know I'm pretty traditional when it comes to picking playoff teams. I always stick with the ones that have shown me the most.
Yeah.
But I always come back to teams like the Celtics and the Knicks that just have a disgusting amount of playoff experience, and they know how to play that gritty basketball. So I think if they were to pull a team like the Pistons, like assuming these standings are going to reorganize, if they pulled a team like maybe the Raptors, maybe the Sixers, I think they'd give the Sixers hell if the Sixers even make the playoffs.
Anyone would give the Sixers.
Questionable take that we could debate on a later episode. But if the standings were to reshape themselves, I think the Hornets have a chance of drawing another young team and then just beating them on the basis of effort and transition and chemistry, right? But if they were to draw a team like the Celtics, the Knicks, the Cavs, even like a team like the Miami Heat, which they're just guys you never want to pull in the playoffs. You're fine playing them in the regular season.
Jimmy anymore.
No, I know, but
Heat are trash.
Still, the Heat will make a lot of noise in the play-in every year, not amount to anything, but still,
they live in there. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a team trying to make it out of the play-in, the Heat are who you don't want to see.
Yeah.
But I don't actually hate this take that much. I don't agree with it, because I think. Wait, do we count like a play-in series? Does that count
As a playoff one?
as like a playoff series win? Will we
No,
count that?
I'm saying I think the Hornets make it the second round.
Okay. I'm not there.
I will say of the top three, I do agree that the Pistons are the best matchup.
Uh-huh.
No, maybe not the best matchup. The best matchup would be the Knicks, in my opinion. However, I do think they might have the best shot against the Pistons because I'm looking at it and I talk about it a lot. Who's their second guy? Tobias Harris.
Yeah.
Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren's good. He's not great.
No. He's getting there.
Who else is great on that team besides Cade? No one?
Dennis Jenkins.
Yeah. See, like
He's tough though. He's tough though.
the bench isn't incredibly inspiring. They don't have a lot of depth. Like I would say strong depth. And it's a well-rounded starting lineup. Who's that second guy? They throw a double at Cade. Who's going to get one?
Yeah.
Tobias Harris.
Maybe.
Asar Thompson. Asar Thompson's great too. Not as much in the offensive end. Not as good as his brother on the offensive end. And I don't know how I don't. It's tough to like rate their like defensive guard like overall depth because Cade's a good defender. Karis LeVert isn't. Duncan Robinson isn't. Dennis Jenkins, I honestly don't know enough about him.
We don't know.
I don't really know enough about his game. Kevin Huerter, not a great defender. I don't know. I could see that team running into some trouble. However, I'm a little bit bigger on the Pistons. I think, say these current standings were to stay, I think they make the Eastern Conference Finals for sure.
Really? That's
I
interesting.
mean, if Knicks and Celtics are on the same side of the bracket, yes, I do think so.
Oh,
and actually,
okay.
I do think the Pistons would beat the Celtics.
Really?
I don't think they'd beat the Knicks.
Wow. I agree. I don't think they beat the Knicks, but I might have to push back on the Celtics take, especially if they have Jason. Even without,
I don't think they rushed him back.
would it be crazy to say that I think the Celtics would beat the Pistons without Jason Tatum too? Is that insanity?
See, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if they had Jason Tatum, I think they'd walk through the East maybe outside of the Knicks because that's like that's like a divisional game
Yeah.
of football. It's always gonna be close.
Exactly.
I think it is kind of crazy to say they'd beat the Celtics without Jason Tatum.
I don't know.
It's not.
It's
It's not crazy. It's not crazy. But
really
I don't. But
not-
I don't think they would.
I'm really just not that high on the Pistons. Maybe there's
I also hate the Celtics so much.
as do I, but I might hate the Knicks more. So maybe
Yeah.
that plays some mental bias games. I think the Pistons are great. I just don't. I mean, one of the hot takes I wrote was I think they're a first round exit. Whether that's at the hand of the Hornets, which would be great because we both cash out.
That'd be
a hot
awesome,
take,
yeah.
and then we have a party on the podcast. I'm just not there. I'm not there. And now's the point in the season where it's like there's 24 games left or so. Now's the time we really start talking about which teams are going to be good. And once again, what I'm seeing again from the East, the Celtics, the Knicks, right? The Celtics have been unbelievable without Tatum. It's just not fair for the rest of the league. They're going to do their thing with or without Tatum, but with Tatum, they're going to especially do it. And then the Knicks they are, to my mind, there's no team that embodies like gritty, hard playoff basketball more than the Knicks, whether that's for better or for worse for your favorite team. I just constantly keep coming back to those teams. And then maybe the Cavaliers, if they can, grow some chemistry, especially between Harden and Jared Allen is such an awesome duo, in my opinion.
No, I love, honestly, the James Harden roster fit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not moved. Like I'm simply not moved, and
Right.
I can't help myself. I'm sorry. The Cavs have not shown anything the past 2 years in the playoffs. I mean, Donovan Mitchell plays great. Where's everyone else? I know they've had some injury luck, but they got bounced by the Pacers in 5.
Yeah.
In 5.
And we don't talk about it enough.
And we don't talk about that at all. I know they were missing Mobley for a little bit, then have Jared Allen, but take a look at 2 years ago. It's a pretty different roster outside of their core 3 guys, and I guess their core 3 would not include Harden just because he just got there. But I'm talking about Mobley, Allen, and Mitchell. It's just not a team that moves me. Sometimes you just kind of got to play your gut check, and that's kind of how I'm feeling with the Cavs. I think they have. I would argue with a Tatumless Celtics, the most talented team in the East.
I don't think that's crazy at all.
I don't think that's crazy to say, but you see them still kind of stumbling even after not as much like getting Harden. And stumbling is kind of a strong way to put it, but they won 60 games last year.
Yeah.
You're not seeing that this year. You're not seeing
not at all
a nearly as high level basketball as years past. I mean, obviously it's changed now, but I think it was over their first 25 to 30 games. They had a bad losing record in games Donovan Mitchell did not score 35 or more.
Right.
Like they were 10-1 in games he did, and then 8-13 in games he didn't.
It's a terrible look.
And that will not hold up. I mean, obviously there's not a lot of amazing defensive guards in the East, but a team like the Celtics come up, they're screwed.
Yeah.
They are screwed. But moving out of the Eastern Conference, just for one more, I'm gonna lump these two together. I had Thunder do not get the 1 seed, second round exit, and you had Spurs win the chip. These kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about the Spurs yet.
It's
I don't
definitely it's a preemptive take from
That
me.
is preemptive.
One, just to kind of throw a name out there. But from what I've seen from this year so far, obviously the Thunder have been incredible, right? But I'm not going to get on a sports podcast and talk about the Thunder are going to win the chip, mainly because I don't want to think about the Thunder.
It's hot
right now.
takes.
But I'd rather think about some other teams in the West. And just looking at what we have here, I just see one team that kind of reemerges in my mind as this is a team I could see doing it, right? The Nuggets, I'm still high on. And I actually believe earlier in the year I picked them to win the chip. I think that was potentially true. Not so much against it now, but they're still really just not moving me that much this year. Mainly because the Cam Johnson trade is an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be incredible for them. But then the Rockets, team chemistry appears to be, just rough, like a piece of sandpaper.
Yeah, and like we said at the start of the year, that point guard position has not been filled. That playmaking void has not been filled, and that will be their downfall.
As good as Reed Shepherd has been, it's just Fred VanVleet is such a good basketball player.
I know. I mean, he's not very efficient, but for his role, he is also a great playoff performer.
Right.
And people don't talk about that
Exactly.
enough.
No, he doesn't get any respect. As good as Reed Shepherd has been, it's just not filled yet. For the star power, they need a better distributor, but the deadline is passed.
I almost put actually that Rockets would end up in the play-in.
Really?
But I was like, I don't know.
I mean,
they're only 2 games up.
No, exactly.
They're only 2 games up, but
That's not far-fetched
in my
whatsoever.
head, might sound crazier. I think the Lakers end up in the play-in. I think this Suns team makes a run to the 6th seed. But let me break down this Thunder take, right? Second round exit. I think the Spurs are going to jump up, get that 1 seed.
Right.
And then, whoever they play, they're going to beat the Thunder, whoever the 7th seed is, they're going to beat them. If the Thunder, by some way, say the Nuggets keep that 3 seed, I think if the Thunder and Nuggets match up again this year, I think the Thunder go home.
Right.
And then on the other side of the bracket, I think they're flirting with it. I think the Timberwolves make the Western Conference Finals.
I like that.
I think they strike down the Nuggets. I think this Timberwolves team could beat the Spurs because for some reason Julius Randle always clamps up Wembanyama. I don't know why that is because he's not that good of a defender. He's really not. But he's a physical basketball player, and that's, maybe not the blueprint to stopping Wemby, but it's a way to limit him. And, I think injuries are still a concern with him. And I think that, that young roster fit, it's, sort of like the Bears of this year, or like I was saying about the Patriots, ahead of schedule. And that's not a bad thing at all. But I think the Spurs outside of Wemby are a little bit ahead of schedule. It is a young roster.
Right.
Champagnie, Harper, Castle, all young guys. Vassell, and they also have no playoff experience. That is a big thing that you touched upon in the East. And while I do think the Spurs can make a run, and I would not be surprised if they made a finals appearance by any means, but the way I see the bracket shaping out in my head would be the Timberwolves knock off the Spurs in the second round.
Right.
And then the Thunder get knocked off by the Nuggets, and history has shown the Timberwolves do also match up pretty well against the Nuggets. Jokic is going to get his, but the rest of their team has never really fared that well against the Wolves. And I think it might be their year to make it.
So you have the T-Wolves in the finals.
I do.
I really like that. And I have to say, aside from what we think will happen, the Timberwolves might be my favorite team to watch in the playoffs. This team is just so fun to watch. And I just love the way the roster is built. I'd love to see Ayo Dosunmu kind of work his way into a starting role here. I mean, they did go out and get him, and I think he's a very nice fit next to Anthony Edwards. DiVincenzo better as a guy coming off the bench. But I actually really I would say the Timberwolves and the Spurs are my top two teams. I think that would be a great Western Conference Finals, and one that's, in my mind, doesn't have the Thunder or the Nuggets, so it's fresh and interesting. So maybe there's a bit of bias there.
Yeah.
But I agree with what you say about the Timberwolves. And the Spurs, yes, there's the worry about very little, playoff experience. But with the Thunder, that I know they were, they had prior playoff experience, before winning the chip, but still, relatively speaking, most of these guys were really young players, right? And I know Shea's had playoff experience, but other guys, all of these young guys that come off the bench on the Thunder, you're like, oh my God, the 11th man on the Thunder is already so good at basketball.
It's infuriating.
It comes from a coaching standpoint. So I think, who better to inform the players about the I guess the conditions of playoffs than Greg Popovich, who might not be directly coaching right now, but still has his influence on the organization.
I mean, yeah, his impact is,
right,
across the entire board in that organization. Yeah, it's great to see. I've always liked Coach Pop, and I'm happy that his legacy is kind of living on.
Yeah.
Not even just in their new coach, just in the facility. Everyone has such high praise about him, and they're so professional. And I do agree that will carry them, maybe past those early playoff jitters. But Pop's not on the court with them. Those playoff flights are bright, and I do think it takes maybe a postseason or two to kind of get used to them. I mean, Anthony Edwards' first playoffs, he played great, but he wasn't very efficient, and he was taking some shots that he doesn't normally take. At least from when I remember watching it, it was a while ago. And I think that he's such a competitor that he will go out there and do anything it takes for his team to win. And I just think their roster is, finally really started to gel together. They've had a few years to get, some experience under the belt. Last year was Julius Randle's first year with the team, and they went to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
And, people were singing his praises the first two rounds. Oh, my God, he's better than Cat. Western Conference Finals rolls around, and it's like, oh, Julius Randle sucks again.
Yep.
You're going to get those series from players. And, even Anthony Edwards has games like that. I mean, against the Thunder, he was a no-show.
Right.
And, there's no narrative around that, but a lot of it is matchup based in the West for me. I feel like the East is a little bit more talent based and a little bit more predictable just because of the kind of lopsided nature of it. But the West is just across the board so competitive. I mean, even a team like the Suns, I would not want to run into them. Last time Devin Booker made the playoffs, he averaged 38.
Right.
And I think they actually have a pretty well-built team this year. I mean, their turnaround from last year with far less talent is really impressive. And I think that's also a team that has some pretty good playoff experience. I mean, Book's been to a finals, and it's a different team from then. But I don't know. I mean, they've fared this well without Jalen Green. If he's able to fit in well and that offense becomes better, I could see them, maybe not making noise, but they could take, someone in the first round, and maybe a team like the Thunder, Spurs, or Nuggets to maybe 7 games.
Right. Yeah, and I completely agree with what you say about the Suns here, and I think it speaks volumes that Devin Booker, there was, not even a whisper from him from this trade deadline, and, there's no question about how long he's been in Phoenix and how little they've really accomplished with him since that finals run against the Bucks. And I actually really like the way this roster is constructed. Minus Jalen Green, I do think it's an awkward fit. That being said, I don't think he'd be starting if Grayson Allen wasn't injured right now. I think he's a better fit. But they've got Royce O'Neal, which is funny because a couple years ago, I remember thinking like, man, this dude is so trash. But he's really developed into a high quality player there. And then they've got Mark Williams, like one of my favorite players in the NBA, who's just awesome, so good at what he does. And then Jordan Goodwin came out of nowhere. He's been awesome. They've got a lot of fun pieces here. And then Devin Booker himself, another guy. I feel like these shooting guards, Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell, they're perennially underrated. These guys never get the respect they deserve. And so for not only Devin Booker's sake, but for the Suns' sake, I hope they can make a decent run here. And I think you're really, ahead of the curve here for marking them as a team that could leap out of. They're at the 7th spot. They're right on the line, 2 games back, right? They could, hop the Minnesota Timberwolves, and now suddenly they're outside of the play-in. We really didn't expect them to be this good. We didn't expect Dillon Brooks to be this good. I don't even know what he's suspended for. But there's a team here. I just think, can you extract off-ball value out of Jalen Green? If the answer is yes, then you've got a team that can make a run in front of you.
Yeah, but no one knows if that's possible.
Is he going to go up for tomahawk yams every possession?
He could.
Then maybe we're taking the ball out of the hands of players who would be much better with it in their hands.
Yeah, and I mean, worst case, the Jalen Green experiment fails. They just went out and they got Cole Anthony, who has shown he can be a solid, bench point guard, get out there, get his own bucket, hold his own on D, and be a somewhat good playmaker. Colin Gillespie's been playing well.
Right.
He can fit that role at the 1 where he's kind of just, spreading the ball around and everything. He doesn't, need to be a crazy scorer, but he's still putting up 12 a game.
Yeah.
And I think that takes a little bit of pressure off Book, who can then, put a little bit more effort into, finding his spot rather than having to facilitate the whole offense. But with that being said, I think we can wrap up. Actually, real quick, just quick, no explanation. What team does Tyreek Hill go to?
Baltimore.
Tennessee.
It's
over.
Oh my God.
It's over.
I actually love that.
It's over.
That's so good.
Yeah, but with that, thank you guys for tuning in once again. As I said before, we're with the George Washington Sports Business Association. If you would like to sign up for the conference I mentioned at the start, please let us know. And you can find that online as well. And some more sports will be starting up soon. It won't be all NBA, but we're excited to get in some deep NBA talk. Halfway through the season, a little bit over now, and a lot of headlines are going to be coming out soon. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.